Welcome to Inside Vietnam. I'm your host, and today's story hits different than most. You've probably seen the statistic floating around expat forums and Facebook groups. 84.4% of Western retirees leave Vietnam broke. Some people call it clickbait, others call it a warning. Brendan O'Sullivan would tell you it's just math. Brendan's 67 years old, from Cork, Ireland, spent over 3 decades supervising a factory floor, building a pension, doing everything right. He came to Vietnam in 2023 with what seemed like a solid plan and enough savings to make it work. He wasn't naive. He'd heard the stories, but he thought he was different. He thought this time would be different. What happened next changed everything. Not in some dramatic Hollywood way, but slowly, incrementally, the way you don't notice you're drowning until the water's already over your head. This one's going to stick with you, because it's not really about Vietnam at all. It's about what happens when you run from loneliness straight into the arms of someone who knows exactly how much that loneliness is worth. Here's his story, in his own words. My name's Brendan O'Sullivan, and I need to tell you about the copper still before I can tell you about anything else. Because everything that happened in Vietnam started the day that pub failed. I worked 32 years at an automotive parts factory outside Cork, paint line supervisor. You might think that sounds boring, and you'd be right, but it was steady. Pension building, health benefits. The kind of work where you know exactly what you're doing every single day, and there's a strange comfort in that. I was good at it too. Could diagnose a paint thickness issue by eye, fix a spray gun malfunction in 20 minutes, run a shift without drama. The lads respected that. I respected myself for it. Weekends were for the pub, not drinking myself stupid, mind you, just the rhythm of it. Pint of Guinness, bit of chat, watch the match, home by 11. Normal. Then in 2018, my younger brother Liam had this idea. There was a pub for sale in Blackpool, nothing fancy, but it had good bones. The Copper Still, they called it. Liam said we should buy it together, run it as brothers, build something to pass down. I had some savings put aside, so did he. It felt right, you know? Family business. Legacy. All that shite we tell ourselves matters. We bought it in March 2018, split everything 50-50. For the first year, it worked. Liam handled the bar, I handled the books and maintenance. Weekends were packed. We weren't getting rich, but we were holding our own, and there was pride in that. Then Liam got ideas. Wanted to expand, put in a full restaurant kitchen, take on debt to finance it. Proper debt, like €60,000 worth. I said no. I'd seen too many pubs overreach and collapse. We were doing fine as we were. Why risk it? Liam said I had no vision, that I'd spent 30 years on a factory floor and didn't understand hospitality. I said he'd spent 30 years pulling pints and didn't understand numbers. It got ugly fast. Our sister Mary got dragged into it, trying to mediate, which just meant both of us were angry at her too. By Christmas 2022, none of us were speaking. The pub failed anyway. Not because of the expansion, because Liam went ahead without me, and I refused to put in more money, so we were fighting about everything. Trust was gone, and customers could feel it. The place just bled out. Closed in February 2023. We sold it for less than we owed. I lost most of my savings trying to keep it afloat toward the end, thinking maybe if I just compromised, just gave a bit more, we could save it. We couldn't. The last words Liam said to me were at the solicitor's office when we signed the closure papers. He looked at me and said, "You were always too scared to build anything." I didn't respond. What could I say? He wasn't entirely wrong. Our mother died 6 weeks later, heart attack, sudden, the kind where you don't get to say goodbye. The funeral was April 2023. Liam stood on the opposite side of the grave. We didn't acknowledge each other. Mary stood between us like a DMZ. After they lowered the casket, Liam left without a word. I haven't spoken to him since. We sold the family home in Blackpool that summer. Had to. None of us wanted to live there, and we needed to settle Mam's affairs. My quarter share came to €72,000. I moved into a small flat near the factory, even though I'd already retired by then. Sat there most evenings watching the rain, realizing I had nothing keeping me in Cork except memories of failure. Every pub I walked past, someone knew about the Copper Still. Every family gathering I skipped because I couldn't face Mary's disappointment or the empty space where Liam should be. The loneliness wasn't dramatic. That's the thing people don't understand. It wasn't crying into my pint or staring at old photos. It was just pervasive, like the Cork rain, constant, gray, everywhere. I'd wake up, make coffee, and think, This is it. This is the rest. Pension deposits every month, no one to talk to, nothing to fix, nothing to build. Just existing until I didn't. That's when the YouTube videos started. I don't even remember how I found the first one. Probably clicked on some travel video at 2 in the morning when I couldn't sleep, and the algorithm took over from there. Retire in paradise on 1,500 a month. Why I left the UK for Vietnam. Living like a king in Da Nang. I watched dozens of them. Some were obvious bullshit, all sunshine and bar girls and no substance. But others seemed genuine. Ordinary men, not much different from me, who'd packed up and left. Who'd found something. I did the math. My Irish state pension plus my occupational pension gave me about €2,100 a month. The video said you could rent a decent place in Da Nang for $300 to $400, eat well for $5 a day, live comfortably on $1,500 a month. I had 72,000 in the bank as a buffer. Even if the videos were exaggerating, even if everything cost twice as much as they claimed, the numbers still worked. But it wasn't really about the numbers. It was about the fact that in Cork, I knew every face in every pub, and all of them remembered the O'Sullivan brothers' spectacular falling out. In Vietnam, no one would know me. No one would ask about Liam or the pub or why I was alone. I could just be Brendan, retired factory supervisor, fixing things and drinking coffee and existing somewhere warm. I'd rather be lonely somewhere warm than lonely somewhere gray. I bought the ticket in October 2023. One way to Da Nang. Told Mary the First was going traveling for a bit. Didn't say how long, she didn't ask. I think she was relieved not to be the bridge between me and Liam anymore. Packed 2 bags, locked up the flat. Left. The flight from Dublin to Da Nang took 26 hours with layovers. I'm not a nervous flyer, but somewhere over the Middle East, I thought, what the hell am I doing? I'm 67 years old, running away to a country where I don't speak the language, don't know a soul, have no plan beyond, don't die in Cork. But I didn't turn back, because the alternative was going home to that flat, in that rain and that silence, and I genuinely couldn't face it. I landed in Da Nang on November 14, 2023. The heat hit me like a wall when I stepped off the plane. 32 degrees, humid, the kind of heat Cork doesn't even imagine. I got a taxi to a hotel I'd booked online, near Thuong Beach, paid $20 for the ride, and thought, well, I'm here now. Better make it work. The first week was chaos. Not dangerous chaos, just sensory overload. The traffic alone nearly killed me. Motorbikes everywhere, thousands of them, weaving through intersections with no apparent rules. I'd stand at a crosswalk for 10 minutes trying to work out when it was safe to cross until a local woman just grabbed my arm and walked me through, the bikes flowing around us like water. She didn't speak English, just smiled and patted my shoulder like I was a confused child. I suppose I was. I found a studio apartment after 5 days of looking. Small place on a side street near Thuong. 4th floor walk-up, no elevator. $400 a month, which matched what the YouTube videos promised. The landlord spoke maybe 20 words of English. I spoke 0 Vietnamese, but we managed. 1 month deposit, sign here, keys. Done. The place was basic. Bed, small kitchen, bathroom with a shower that sprayed water everywhere, air conditioning unit that rattled like it was dying. But it was mine, and the rent was less than I'd paid for parking in Cork. I spent November and December learning the rhythm. That's the only way I can describe it. Da Nang has a rhythm, and you either learn it or you stay a tourist forever. I learned which Com Tam place near my apartment served the best broken rice with grilled pork for 40,000 dong, about $1.50. Learned the bus routes, though I mostly walked. Learned that you could get fresh banh mi for breakfast for 20,000 dong, and it'd be better than anything you'd pay €10 for back home. Learned that the beach at 6 in the morning was the best part of the day, before the heat got vicious and the tourists showed up. I also learned which expats to avoid. There's a bar called Moose's in Thuong, Canadian place, and it's where a lot of the Western men end up. Some of them are decent, retired teachers, former engineers, normal lads just living cheap and quiet. But there's another type too, the ones who've been here 10 years and act like they own the place. The ones with 20-year-old girlfriends who call them baby and disappear when the money runs out. The ones who'll corner you at the bar and tell you all about Vietnamese women, about how to avoid scams, all while being the walking embodiment of every scam story you've ever heard. I met one guy, Scottish fella named Graham, second week I was there. He'd been in Da Nang for 6 years. We got talking over a beer, and he asked the usual questions. Where you from? How long you staying? What brought you here? I gave him the sanitized version. Retired, wanted somewhere warm. Cork got old. He nodded like he'd heard it 1,000 times. Then he said, "You'll hear stories. About the women here, the money, all that. Some of it's true, some of it's shite. Just remember, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is." I appreciated the warning, but I also thought, I'm not that stupid. I'm 67 years old, I've run factory shifts, I've owned a business. I'm not some lonely fool who's going to fall for the first pretty face who smiles at me. Looking back now, that's exactly what I was. But I didn't know it yet. The anonymity was the best part. In Cork, one couldn't go anywhere without history following me. The copper still's failure was public knowledge. Everyone had an opinion about who was to blame, what we should have done different. Every conversation eventually circled back to it, or to Liam, or to poor Mary stuck in the middle. Here, nobody knew. Nobody cared. I was just another white guy in shorts and sandals, sweating through the heat, trying to figure out how to order coffee. But the anonymity had a flip side. Nobody knowing you means nobody caring about you either. I'd go whole days without speaking English to anyone except to say thank you, or how much. I'd sit at the beach watching families, couples, groups of backpackers, all connected to someone, and I'd realize I was more alone here than I'd been in Cork. At least in Cork, the loneliness was familiar. I thought about going home more than once. December especially. Christmas in Cork is a thing, you know. Pubs full, everyone singing, the lights up on Patrick Street. I thought about Mary, wondered if she was at Liam's, or if they'd both just skipped it this year. Wondered if either of them wondered where I was. Probably not. I stayed because leaving meant admitting I'd made a mistake, that I'd burned €72,000 worth of inheritance on a geographic escape that didn't work, that running from loneliness doesn't cure it, it just relocates it somewhere humid. January came. The weather got a bit cooler, or at least less like standing in front of an industrial dryer. I started walking more, exploring beyond Antoine. There's a street called Nguyen Van Toi, runs parallel to the beach, lined with coffee shops and small restaurants. I'm particular about coffee. 32 years of factory work, you develop opinions about these things. Most of the places served instant coffee, or that Vietnamese style with the condensed milk, which is lovely if you like drinking dessert. But I wanted proper espresso. I found a place that did it right. Small shop, maybe 6 tables, run by a woman and her daughter. The daughter worked mornings, the mother took over afternoons. The daughter's name was Lynn. I didn't notice her the first few times I went in. Just ordered my coffee, sat outside, watched the motorbikes. But one morning in late January, she brought my espresso over and said, in careful English, "You want real coffee or Irish coffee?" I looked up. She was smiling, not flirting, just making a joke. She'd noticed my accent. "Real coffee," I said. "Irish coffee's for tourists who don't know better." She laughed at that. Proper laugh, not the polite customer service kind. Then she asked, "Ireland is really green like in pictures." And just like that, we were talking. I didn't think much of it at first. Just pleasant conversation with someone who worked at the coffee shop I liked. But over the next few weeks, those conversations got longer. She'd ask about the factory, seemed genuinely curious about how manufacturing worked. I'd explain paint lines and quality control, and she'd nod along, asking follow-up questions that showed she was actually listening. We talked about ordinary things. The weather. The best banh mi spots. Why Vietnamese coffee was so strong. She told me she was 34, from a village about an hour outside Da Nang. Worked mornings at the shop, studied English at night, saved money to help her younger siblings. She had a life, you know. A routine, goals. She wasn't hanging around hotels or working the bars. When her shift ended at noon, she'd head off to class or to help her mother, not asking if I wanted company or hinting at anything. That's what made it feel different. Every expat in Da Nang has heard the stories. The girl who needs money for her sick buffalo, then her brother's motorbike, then her cousin's wedding. But Lynn never asked for anything, never even mentioned money, just wanted to practice her English, and seemed to enjoy talking to someone who treated her like a person, not a transaction. By early February, I was going to that coffee shop every morning, staying longer, looking forward to it in a way I hadn't looked forward to anything in months. The loneliness that had followed me from Cork started to feel less pervasive. I had someone to talk to, someone who didn't know about the pub or Liam or any of it, someone who laughed at my dry Cork humor and asked me to explain what taking the piss meant. Looking back, I should have seen it. Should have noticed that she was good at this. At making lonely men feel seen, but I didn't want to see it. Because for the first time since the pub failed, since Mom died, since I'd sat in that flat watching cork rain, I felt like maybe coming here wasn't a mistake after all. Her name was Lynn, and she worked at a coffee shop on Nguyen Van Thuy, and she was about to cost me everything I had left. By mid-February, we were having coffee outside the shop, at least 3 times a week. Not dates, exactly, just talking. She finished her shift at noon, and sometimes she'd sit with me for 20 minutes before heading to her English class. We'd talk about nothing important. I told her about the factory, about paint viscosity and production quotas, stuff I never thought would interest anyone. She listened like it mattered, asked questions. How many cars used our parts? Did I miss it? What was Cork like? I told her Cork was gray and wet and full of people who knew too much about my business. She laughed and said, Da Nang was hot and loud and full of people who wanted to know your business. Same problem, different weather. One afternoon in late February, she asked if I wanted to walk along the Han River with her. She had an hour before class. The weather was decent. I said yes before I'd really thought about it. We walked from the coffee shop toward the Dragon Bridge, her chatting about her English course, me half listening, half wondering what this was. Were we friends? Was this something else? I didn't know the protocol anymore. Hadn't been on anything resembling a date since the 80s. She stopped at a street vendor selling chi, Vietnamese sweet soup, and ordered 2 cups without asking if I wanted one. Handed me one, said, "You try." Very good. It was too sweet for my taste, but I drank it anyway. We sat on a bench watching the river traffic, the tourist boats, the locals fishing off the banks. That's when she said it. Casual, like she was commenting on the weather. My family, very difficult now. My mother need operation for knee, very expensive. I should have heard the alarm bells. Should have recognized the script Graham had warned me about. But she didn't ask for money, didn't even look at me when she said it. Just stared at the river, looking tired and small and worried. How expensive, I asked. 20 million dong, maybe more. She did the conversion in her head. $800 maybe? I thought about it. $800 against 72,000 euro. Less than 1% of my savings. Her mother's knee surgery, real medical issue, not some vague emergency. And Lynn hadn't asked, hadn't hinted, just stated a fact. I can help with that, I said. She turned to look at me, eyes wide. No, I not ask you. I just say, talking. I know you didn't ask, but I'm offering. $800 isn't going to break me, and your mother needs the surgery. Her eyes filled with tears, proper tears, not the performative kind. She shook her head, said something in Vietnamese I didn't understand, then switched to English. You very kind man, Brendan. Very kind. My mother, she will be so happy. I will pay you back, I promise. You don't need to pay me back, I said. Just help your mother. She cried then. Actually cried. Hugged me right there on the bench by the river, saying thank you over and over in Vietnamese and English, her voice breaking. I felt useful for the first time since the copper still closed, not needed. Important. Like I mattered to someone again. Looking back now, I can see it. The setup, the casual mention, the tears. But in that moment, it felt genuine. And maybe it was, in its way. Maybe she was relieved. Maybe her mother really did need surgery. Maybe the gratitude was real. The thing about these stories is they're not clean, not good guys and bad guys. Just lonely people and people who've learned to profit from loneliness. I gave her the $800 2 days later, cash in an envelope. She cried again, promised to show me the hospital receipts, said I was the only person who'd ever helped her family without wanting something back. That should have been the warning. But I didn't want to hear it. March arrived. Our conversations got longer, more personal. She told me about growing up in a village where everyone was poor, where education meant sacrifice, where her mother had worked in rice fields her whole life and now her knees were destroyed. I told her about the factory, about 32 years of doing the same thing, about retirement feeling like a life sentence. I didn't tell her about Liam or the pub. Not yet. That felt too raw. One evening, she invited me to dinner at a small place in Hai Cha district. Nothing fancy, just a local restaurant that served bun cha and spring rolls. She ordered for both of us, taught me how to wrap the rolls properly, laughed when I made a mess of it. We drank cheap Saigon beer and talked until the restaurant closed. When I walked her to the Zayom stand to get her motorbike taxi home, she kissed me on the cheek. quick, almost shy. Thank you for tonight, she said. For everything. I went back to my apartment feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Hope, maybe. Or just the absence of loneliness. Either way, it was enough. April came. Her cousin had a motorbike accident. Not life-threatening, but the medical bills were mounting. $1,200. Again, Lynn mentioned it in passing, didn't ask directly. Said she was stressed, didn't know how the family would manage. Again, I offered before she could ask. Brendan, no, is too much, she protested. It's not too much, I said. I want to help. She cried again. Same pattern, same gratitude, same promises to pay me back someday. I told her to forget it. What was $1,200 against my savings? Nothing. Less than nothing. But the way she looked at me when I said yes, like I was solving all her problems, like I was someone who mattered, that was worth more than money. The pattern was forming, but I couldn't see it yet. Or didn't want to. Because for the first time since Cork, since the pub, since Mam's funeral, I felt needed. And I'd forgotten how good that felt. How dangerous that feeling could be. We started spending more time together. She'd finish her shift at the coffee shop. We'd walk, talk, eat. Nothing physical yet. Just companionship. She'd rest her head on my shoulder when we sat by the river. Hold my hand when we crossed the street through the mad traffic. Small intimacies that felt enormous to someone who'd been alone as long as I had. One night in late April, we were at a Bonzio place near my apartment, sharing a crispy pancake filled with shrimp and bean sprouts, and she got quiet. I asked what was wrong. I worry about future, she said. Mother getting old. Brother and sister need help for school. I work every day but never enough money. Sometimes I think, what the point? I understood that feeling better than she knew, the weight of obligation, the sense that you're always failing someone. I reached across the table, took her hand. You're doing your best, I said. That's all anyone can do. She smiled at me, squeezed my hand. You understand me, Brendan. Most people don't understand. They think Vietnam people always want money from foreigner, but is not like that. Is just, family is everything here. You take care of family, always. No choice. I believed her, wanted to believe her, because the alternative was admitting that Graham was right, that the stories were true, that I was just another lonely expat being played. And I couldn't admit that, not yet. Not when being needed felt so much better than being alone. What's $800? What's $1,200? Against €72,000? Against a pension that paid $2,100 a month? It was nothing. Small change. Investment in something real. In someone who saw me as more than a failed factory supervisor, more than the brother who couldn't save the pub. I told myself it was different this time. That Lynn was different. That her gratitude was genuine, her struggles real, her affection earned. I told myself a lot of things in those early months, none of them true. But I needed them to be true more than I needed to be careful. And that's the difference between wisdom and experience. Experience is what you get when you ignore wisdom. And I was about to get a very expensive education. May brought the rainy season, and with it, an invitation I'd been half expecting, half dreading. Lynn asked if I wanted to meet her mother. We took a grab taxi to Hoa Can, a district west of the city center where the tourist veneer drops away and you see actual Vietnamese life. Narrow alleys, laundry hanging between buildings. Motorbikes parked 3 deep. Her mother's house was small, concrete, painted that faded yellow-green color you see everywhere in Vietnam. Roof tiles patched with corrugated metal. Pot plants in old fish sauce containers. Lynn's mother was maybe 60, tiny, gray hair pulled back in a bun. She welcomed me with a smile and a string of Vietnamese I didn't understand. Lynn translated, laughing. She say you very handsome for old man. We sat in the front room on plastic stools around a low table. Her mother served tea and sliced dragon fruit, hovering nervously like she was hosting royalty. Lynn translated back and forth. Standard questions. Where was I from? Did I have children? What did I think of Vietnam? I played the respectful foreigner, complimented the tea, said Vietnam was beautiful, asked polite questions about the family. Her mother showed me photos. Lynn as a child, gap-toothed and skinny, her younger brother and sister in school uniforms, the father, dead 10 years from cancer. The whole time, Lynn's mother kept smiling at me, nodding, saying things in Vietnamese that made Lynn blush. When we left, walking back to the main road to catch a taxi, I asked what her mother had been saying. She say you good man? Kind face. She happy I have someone take care of me. I should have heard it. Take care of me, not love me, not make me happy. Take care of me. But I was too busy feeling proud, feeling accepted. This is what the YouTube channels meant about real Vietnam. Family. Tradition. A woman whose mother approved of you. June came fast. The heat turned brutal. The kind where you sweat through your shirt just walking to get coffee. That's when Lynn's cousin had the motorbike accident. She told me about it one evening when we were walking near my K beach. Cousin hit by a car, broken leg, hospital bills mounting. 30 million dong, about $1,200. The family was scrambling. Her mother was stressed. Lynn was stressed. She wasn't asking, she said, just explaining why she seemed distracted lately. I offered the same day. $1,200. She protested harder this time, said it was too much, that I'd already helped with her mother's surgery. I insisted. What was $1,200 against what I had? Against what this was becoming? She cried again. Same script, same gratitude. But this time, something felt different. Rehearsed, maybe. Or maybe I just noticed it for the first time and chose to ignore it. We started spending nights together in June. Not every night, but often enough that it felt like something. A relationship. She'd stay at my apartment. We'd cook simple meals, watch Vietnamese TV I didn't understand while she translated the funny bits. In the mornings, she'd leave early for her shift at the coffee shop, kiss me goodbye, tell me she'd see me later. It felt normal, domestic, like building something real. That's when she mentioned the cafe. We were lying in bed one humid night in early July, the air conditioner rattling, her head on my chest. She said, quiet, like she was afraid to jinx it. I always want to have small cafe, my own place, simple. Good coffee, maybe some pastry. Nothing big, just something mine. My ears pricked. Finally, something I understood. Business. I'd run shifts, managed budgets, partnered on the copper still. This was familiar territory. You could do that, I said. Da Nang needs more good coffee places. She sat up, looked at me. You think so? I know so. I've been to every coffee shop in Thuong. Half of them are terrible. You know coffee, you know service, you speak English, you could make it work. Her eyes lit up. But it's expensive. Rent, equipment, license. Maybe I'd do it someday, when I save enough. That's when I should have stopped. Should have let her save. Should have kept my distance from anything that involved money and partnership. But I thought about the copper still. About how it failed because Liam and I couldn't trust each other. About how this could be different. A second chance. A redemption. What if we did it together? I said. She looked at me like I'd offered her the moon. Together? You run the cafe, handle the daily operations. I handle the books, the repairs, the business side. I supervised factory operations for 30 years. I know systems, I know management, and you know coffee and customers. We'd be partners. I could see her thinking, processing. Then, careful, she said. But I have no money for investment. I have money, I said. I invest, you run it, we split the profits. Proper business, proper partnership. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, you really want to do this? With me? I do, I said. And I meant it. This was my second act. My proof that I could build something that lasted. That the copper. Still failed because of Liam, not because of me. We spent July looking at spaces. Small storefronts in Thuong, near the beach, where tourists and expats walked by constantly. Lynn would translate conversations with landlords, while I assessed the spaces. Electrical capacity, water access, foot traffic. The factory supervisor and me analyzing every detail. We found a place in late July. Tiny, maybe 20 square meters. But it had good bones. Street facing, corner location. Rent was reasonable. $350 a month. The deposit was the problem. Landlord wanted 6 months up front, plus key money, plus fees. Came to 360 million dong. About $15,000. I hesitated. For maybe 6 hours, I actually hesitated. That was 20% of my savings. That was real money. That was the difference between safe and risky. But then I thought about sitting in my apartment alone, pension coming in every month, slowly dying of boredom and loneliness in a country that wasn't mine. And I thought about having a purpose, a project, a partner who needed me. I transferred the money. Lynn cried when I showed her the bank receipt. Said I was crazy, that I trusted too much, that she'd work hard every day to make it successful. Said we were family now, partners, that she'd never let me down. We signed the lease in early August. Started buying equipment, commercial espresso machine, 8 million dong. Grinder, 3 million. Tables, chairs, cups, signs. Each expense felt reasonable in isolation, smart even, investing in quality. Then her mother's house needed repairs, roof leaking, walls cracking, plumbing broken. Lynn showed me photos. Real damage, real problems. She said her mother was embarrassed to ask for help, but the rainy season was coming and the house might not survive it. How much? I asked. Maybe 200 million dong. $8,000. I should have said no, should have drawn a line. But I thought about her mother serving me tea, smiling at me, calling me handsome. I thought about family obligations, about how in Vietnam you take care of family. I thought about how refusing meant I wasn't really committed, wasn't really family. I paid for the repairs. By the time the cafe opened in mid-September, I'd put in nearly $25,000. The cafe itself, the equipment, her mother's house, each payment documented, each one reasonable, each one part of building something real. The cafe was small but good. Lynn named it En Cafe, meaning peaceful cafe. We painted the walls white, hung simple decorations, set up 6 small tables. She worked mornings. I came in afternoons to handle paperwork and maintenance. Fixed the espresso machine when it jammed, built shelves, painted the trim. For the first time since the copper still closed, I felt useful, needed. Like I was building something that would last. Looking back now, I can see how perfectly it was constructed. The slow escalation, the real needs mixed with the manufactured ones. The way each payment felt justified, necessary, part of something larger. The way Lynn framed everything as cultural obligation, family duty, partnership investment. But in September 2024, standing in that tiny cafe watching Lynn serve espresso to our first customers, I felt nothing but pride. This wasn't Cork. This wasn't Liam. This was different. This time would be different. I'd put in $25,000. I was about to put in a lot more. The cafe opened on September 12, 2024. I remember the date because it was exactly 10 months since I'd landed in Da Nang, 10 months since I'd escaped Cork, and now I had something to show for it. Something real. The first week was rough. Getting the word out, figuring out the flow, dealing with equipment issues. But Lynn was good. Really good. She remembered customers' names, their orders, made people feel welcome. The expats started coming. The tourists followed. By late September, we were breaking even most days. Some days, we even made a profit. I felt proud in a way I hadn't felt since the early days of the copper still. Before Liam and I started fighting. Before it all went to shite. Then October came, and with it, the first real test. Lynn came to me one evening at my apartment. We'd just finished dinner, some simple stir-fry I'd made. She was quiet, not upset, just serious. I asked what was wrong. My brother, she said, he get accepted to university, Da Nang. University of Economics. Very good school. That's brilliant, I said. You must be proud. Yes. But his problem? Tuition very expensive. 150 million dong for a year. Maybe more for books, living. I did the math in my head. 150 million dong. About 6,000 euro. My stomach tightened. That was different from the other payments. Larger, more final. When does he need it? I asked. Deadline is October 20, 2 weeks. If we not pay, he lose the place. I sat there thinking. I'd already put in $25,000. My savings were down to about 47,000 euro. 6,000 more would take me to 54,000 spent. 3/4 of my inheritance gone in less than a year. I need to think about it, I said. Her expression didn't change. No anger, no disappointment. Just a small nod. Okay, I understand, is a lot of money. But something shifted. Not dramatically, just subtly. Like a door closing somewhere I couldn't quite see. For the next 3 days, Lynn was different. Still polite, still working the cafe, still sleeping at my place some nights, but distant, cordial. Like I was a business associate instead of a partner. She'd answer my questions with one word, smile without it reaching her eyes, leave earlier than usual. On the 3rd day, I asked if something was wrong. No, nothing wrong, she said. Then, careful, like she was mentioning the weather, A customer at old coffee shop, he hear about my brother. Nice man, Australian. He offer to help. I tell him no, because I have you. Because we are partners. Cannot take money from stranger. She didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. The implication was clear as glass. Prove your family, or someone else will. Prove you're committed, or lose your place. I paid the €6,000 the next day. Lynn cried, hugged me, said I was saving her family, that her brother would work so hard that she'd never forget this. Said we were real family now, not just partners. Blood might be thicker than water, but trust and loyalty were thicker than both. I wanted to believe her. Needed to believe her. Because the alternative was admitting I'd just been manipulated. That the 3 days of distance were calculated. That the mention of the Australian was a threat dressed up as gratitude. And I couldn't admit that. Not when I'd already put in $31,000. Not when walking away meant all of it was wasted. The pattern repeated through November. Always a crisis. Always urgent. Always framed as family obligation or cafe necessity. Lynn's sister needed money for her wedding. $3,000. The cafe's espresso machine broke down, needed replacing. $2,000. Her mother's medication costs were mounting. $1,000. Each time, Lynn would mention it casually, never asking directly. And each time, if I hesitated, she'd go quiet, distant, until I paid. By the end of November, I'd put in another $10,000. My savings were down to about €37,000. Just over half my inheritance gone. The numbers didn't lie, but I kept lying to myself. I told myself the cafe was an investment, that it would pay off eventually, that we just needed to get through the rough early months. I told myself Lynn's family obligations were real, that in Vietnam this was normal, that I was learning a different culture. I told myself the brother's university fees were an investment in his future, which was an investment in Lynn's future, which was an investment in our future. I told myself everything except the truth. The truth was, I'd noticed things, small things that added up to something I didn't want to see. Lynn's English was improving too fast. Not from classes, but from practice. The kind of practice you get from talking to multiple people regularly. Her phone was always face down. Always. And she'd check it constantly, even during conversations, even at the cafe. She'd mention the Australian customer twice more. Always in passing, always when I'd hesitated on a payment. Like a reminder that I was replaceable. The cafe was barely breaking even, but Lynn always had new clothes, new phone, new motorbike. Where was that money coming from if the cafe wasn't profitable and her family was always struggling? I noticed all of it, every single warning sign. But noticing isn't the same as acting, because acting meant confronting her. And confronting her meant either she'd have an explanation that made sense, or she wouldn't. And if she wouldn't, then everything I'd built here was a lie, so I didn't confront her. I just kept paying, kept investing, kept pretending that if I just gave a bit more, just trusted a bit longer, it would all work out. Same pattern as the copper still, same delusion, just a different country. By late November, I'd put in $41,000 total. My bank balance showed €31,000 left, less than half. The buffer was disappearing. The safety net was full of holes. But I couldn't stop, because stopping meant admitting I'd failed again. That I'd come to Vietnam running from one failed partnership and walked straight into another. That Liam was right when he said I was too scared to build anything, because the only thing I'd built in Vietnam was an elaborate way to go broke. The cafe sat there on that corner in An Thuong, white walls and simple tables, serving espresso to tourists who didn't know my story. And I'd sit there some afternoons, watching Lynn work, watching the money I'd given her turn into something that had my name on it but didn't actually belong to me. I thought about Cork, about sitting in that flat watching the rain, about how lonely I'd been. And I realized I was just as lonely now, except the loneliness cost $60 a day and came with espresso. December was coming, and with it, the end of everything. I just didn't know it yet. December came with more of the same, more emergencies, more quiet distance when I hesitated, more relief when I paid. Her mother needed dental work. $1,500. The cafe needed new chairs because the old ones were breaking. $800. Ling's sister's wedding expenses kept growing. Another $1,000. Each time, my bank balance dropped. €30,000. 28. 25. The cafe was barely breaking even. Some days we'd make $50 profit. Other days, nothing. I'd sit there doing the math, trying to figure out how long before we turned a corner. But the corner never came. By Christmas, I'd stopped going to Moose's bar entirely. Couldn't face the other expats. Couldn't face Graham's knowing look. Couldn't face being another cautionary tale. I spent Christmas Day at the cafe. Lynn was with her family. Said it was important, traditional. I sat there alone, drinking espresso I'd paid for, in a shop I'd funded, waiting for a woman who was probably spending the day with people who actually mattered to her. My savings were down to €25,000. I'd spent $47,000 in 13 months. The math was simple, brutal. At this rate, I'd be broke by summer. Then January 2025 arrived. And with it, the stupidest, most mundane revelation. Lynn was at my apartment. We'd had dinner, watched some Vietnamese soap opera she liked. She went to shower, her phone was on the counter. It lit up. Facebook Messenger notifications. 3 of them, rapid fire. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Messages from men. Western names. Mark, James, David. The first opened the app, no password. Like she didn't care if I found it. Or maybe she knew I would eventually and had stopped bothering to hide it. The messages went back months. Conversations with Mark from Australia. James from America. David from Britain. All of them the same pattern. Flirty, familiar, affectionate, and all of them sending money. I scrolled through Mark's thread, her mother's surgery. 25 million dong. The cousin's accident. 30 million. Screenshots of bank transfers. Her thanking him the exact same way she'd thanked me, word for word. You very kind man. My mother will be so happy. James's thread. The brother's university fees. 150 million dong. Her sister's wedding. 60 million. More screenshots. More identical gratitude. David's thread was shorter, newer, but the same script. The mother's dental work. The cafe renovations. Transfer confirmations. Template responses. I kept scrolling. My stomach dropped further with each message. The cousin's motorbike accident had been used on 3 different men across 8 months. Different amounts each time, but always between $1,000 and $2,000. The university fees appeared 4 times. To me, to Mark, to James, to someone named Robert whose messages ended abruptly in October. Her responses were templates. Copy, paste, slight modification. Change the name. Adjust the gratitude level based on the amount sent, but fundamentally identical. The water shut off in the bathroom. I heard her humming. Some Vietnamese pop song. I sat there holding her phone, all the evidence right there in my hands, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not betrayal, just a hollow sort of recognition. Like finally admitting something I'd known all along but refused to see. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, hair wet, saw me holding the phone, stopped. I held it up, didn't say anything. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she sat down on the bed, still in the towel, and waited. Mark from Australia, I said. James from America. David from Britain. How many others? She didn't deny it, didn't apologize, didn't even look particularly bothered, just shrugged. Maybe 5, 6 right now. Before, more. Some stop paying, some leave Vietnam, some find out and get angry. The cousin's accident. You used it on 3 different men. Cousin have 2 accident. First one real, second one maybe not real. But bills still need to pay. The university fees. You got that money from 4 people. Brother very expensive. 1 person not enough. I should have been angry, should have felt something. But all I felt was tired. The cafe. Was any of it real? She considered this. Cafe real, mother real, family real, problems real. But yes, I have other men help too. You know this, Brendan. You just don't want to know. Her exact words were, you knew, you all know. You just don't want to admit it. I tried to argue, the partnership, the plans, her mother smiling at me, calling me handsome. All real, right? Lynn stood up, started getting dressed. Casual, like we were discussing the weather. Everything real, mother like you. I like you, you very kind. Cafe is real business, but I need money. You need to feel needed. Fair exchange. Fair exchange, I repeated. The words tasted like ash. Yes. She pulled on her jeans. You lonely man. Come to Vietnam, have no one. I make you feel important. You give money, I give you purpose. Both people get what they need. I gave you $47,000. And you feel good, yes? Feel useful. Feel like you building something. That worth 47,000 to you. To me, that worth 47,000 to my family. Everyone win. She said it so matter-of-factly, so transactional, like she was explaining a business arrangement between equals, which, I suppose, in her mind, it was. What about Mark and James and David? They feel like they're building something too. Maybe. I don't know. Not my problem what they feel. They give money. They get what they want from me. Same as you. I sat there trying to process it, trying to find the lie, the deception, the villain. But she wasn't lying now. She was being more honest than she'd been in months. The cafe, I said. Can I keep it? She shrugged again, finished dressing. You own lease. You pay for everything. Of course you keep. But you need Vietnamese person to run it. Good luck finding someone. She packed her things. Didn't take long. She'd never really moved in. Toothbrush, change of clothes, phone charger. Fit everything in a small bag. At the door, she turned. You know, Brendan, you're not bad, man. You're just lonely. Loneliness make people do stupid things. Make them pay too much for too little. Then she left. No tears. No scene. No drama. Just transactional clarity. I sat in my apartment for a long time after she was gone. The phone still in my hand. The evidence of my own willful blindness glowing on the screen. I could have confronted her earlier. Could have asked questions. Could have demanded to see receipts, bank statements, proof. But I hadn't. Because I didn't want proof. I wanted the feeling. The purpose. The sense that I mattered to someone. And she'd given me that. For $47,000, she'd made me feel needed for 13 months. That worked out to about $3,600 a month. For companionship, purpose, and the illusion of partnership. Graham had warned me. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is. But I'd ignored him. Because ignoring wisdom is easier than accepting loneliness. I opened my banking app. 25,000 euro left. 1/3 of my inheritance, the rest gone. Poured into a cafe that would fail without Lynn, into a family that wasn't mine, into emergencies that may or may not have been real. The worst part? She was right. I had known. Maybe not the specific details, not the other men, not the templated responses. But I'd known the pattern, known the manipulation, known the score. I just chose the fantasy over the truth. Because the truth was too lonely to bear. I tried to run the cafe for 6 weeks, hired a Vietnamese woman named Huong who'd worked at a restaurant nearby, paid her $200 a month, taught her the espresso machine, showed her the books, but without Lynn, the place had no soul. The regulars stopped coming. The tourists never knew we existed. Some days, we'd serve 5 coffees. 10. The rent alone was $350 a month. The math didn't work. I sold my share to a local buyer in late February. Got 4,000 euro for it. The lease, the equipment, the goodwill, all of it. 15,000 euro investment, 4,000 euro recovery. 11,000 euro loss on top of everything else I'd given Lynn. I did the final accounting one night in March. Sat down with my bank statements and a calculator and added it all up. Mother's surgery, $800. Cousin's accident, $1,200. Cafe deposit, $15,000. Equipment and setup, $6,000. Mother's house repairs, $8,000. Brother's university, $6,000. Sister's wedding, $3,000. Various emergencies through November and December, $6,000. Total to Lynn directly, $47,000. About 43,000 euro. Plus living expenses for 15 months. Rent, food, visa runs, everything else. Another 15,000 euro. 58,000 euro spent. 14,000 left. My 72,000 euro inheritance, gone in 18 months. I moved out of Thuong in March 2025. Couldn't afford the $400 rent anymore. Couldn't face walking past the cafe, past the coffee shop where I'd met her, past all the places where I'd convinced myself I was building something real. Found a place in Hoa Can, same district where Lynn's mother lived. Small room in a local house, $250 a month, no expats, no English speakers. Just me and Vietnamese families and the sound of motorbikes and karaoke at all hours. The pension still comes in. 2,100 euro a month, about 55 million dong. It's enough if you're careful. Rice and pork for 30,000 dong, on me for 20. The occasional beer. I fix neighbors' motorbikes for free, mostly because it gives me something to do. They bring me fruit sometimes, Mangoes, dragon fruit, fair exchange. I don't go back to Tuong. Can't face Moose's bar, can't face Graham's knowing look, can't face being another story the expats tell over beer. The Irish guy who lost everything to a coffee shop girl. They probably don't even use my name. Just the Irish guy. I'm a type now, not a person. I thought about going home. Thought about it seriously for a while. But home to what? Liam still won't speak to me. Mary sends occasional messages asking how I am, but there's nothing to say. And now I'd have to admit, I took my share of Mam's house and poured it into a Vietnamese woman who saw me as inventory. The shame of that keeps me here. At least in Da Nang, nobody knows my full story. Nobody knows about the copper still or Liam or the 72,000 euro I burned through in 18 months. I'm just another broke expat living in Hoa Can, scraping by on pension, trying to make it stretch. I'm not bitter at Lynn, that's the strange part one. See her sometimes, from a distance. She's back working at the old coffee shop on Win Van Toi. Probably chatting with some new lonely foreigner about how hard life is, how expensive her family obligations are, how she dreams of something better, and good luck to her. She was honest in her way, more honest than I was with myself. She never lied about what it was. I did. I came to Vietnam running from one failed partnership straight into another. With Liam, we were family who couldn't trust each other. With Lynn, we were never family at all. I was a customer. She was a service provider. The service was feeling needed. The price was 65,000 euro. And here's the thing the YouTube channels never mention. The thing Graham tried to warn me about, the thing I had to pay 65,000 euro to learn, loneliness makes you do stupid things. Makes you pay for the feeling of being needed. Makes you ignore obvious warning signs, because the alternative, accepting that you're alone and might stay that way, is too painful to face. The lads on YouTube talk about cost of living, visa requirements, best neighborhoods. They don't talk about how expensive loneliness gets. They don't talk about how you'll convince yourself that this time is different, that this person is different, that you're different. They don't talk about how you'll choose the fantasy over the truth every single time, right up until you can't anymore. I live in Hoa Can now. 14,000 euro in the bank, pension coming in, no buffer, no safety net, no second chances. If I get sick, if something breaks, if Vietnam changes its visa rules, I'm fucked. But I'm still here, still existing. The isolation I ran from in Cork found me anyway, but now it speaks Vietnamese and costs $250 a month. I'm 68 years old. I fix motorbikes for neighbors I can't talk to. I eat cheap com tam at places where nobody knows my name. I watch the rain when it comes and think about Cork, about Liam, about the copper still, about Lynn, about all the ways I tried to build something and failed. The truth is, I didn't come to Vietnam to retire. I came to matter, to feel useful, to prove that Liam was wrong, that I wasn't too scared to build anything. And I did build something. I built an elaborate, expensive delusion. $47,000 worth of feeling needed. That's the lesson. That's what this story is about. Not Vietnam, not scams, not cultural differences. It's about what happens when you run from yourself. Because you can't. You just arrive broken in a different place. Lynn was right. We both got what we needed. She needed money. I needed to feel needed. Fair exchange. I just wish it had been cheaper. That was Brendan's story. Now, before we go, I want to put this in perspective. That 84.4% statistic. It's not scientific. Nobody's tracking every Western retiree in Vietnam. But talk to enough expats, visit enough bars, spend enough time in places like Da Nang or Saigon, and you'll hear the same story over and over. The details change the amounts, the emergencies, the names. But the pattern's identical. Lonely men buying purpose, paying for the feeling of being needed. And here's what's important. This isn't about Vietnam being predatory. Vietnam's a beautiful country with genuine people living genuine lives. This is about vulnerable men showing up with savings and loneliness, broadcasting both, and meeting people who've learned to profit from that combination. Could it happen anywhere? Absolutely. Thailand, Philippines, Colombia, anywhere lonely, Western men go searching for something they couldn't find at home. The location doesn't matter. The loneliness does. Brendan's story isn't a warning about Vietnam. It's a warning about running from yourself. Because wherever you go, you take yourself with you. Your loneliness, your need to be needed, your willingness to ignore warning signs because the alternative feels worse. If you're watching this and thinking about making the same move Brendan did, ask yourself, are you running towards something or away from something? Because if you're running away, if you're trying to escape loneliness or failure or shame, it'll find you, and it'll cost you. Maybe not 65,000 euro, maybe more, maybe less, but you'll pay. The paradise the YouTube channels sell, it exists, but only if you show up whole. If you show up broken, desperately lonely, needing to matter to someone, anyone, you'll find people ready to meet that need for a price. Thanks for watching Inside Vietnam. If this story resonated with you, if you've got your own cautionary tale, share it in the comments. Sometimes warning others is the only wisdom we get from expensive mistakes. Take care of yourselves out there.